we've got a little spot up here. This is what I meant to show you. We've got a little spot up here. We've got a hot spot but nothing around it. And, we can actually drive around on Google Street Map, and up here, but it's not shown, is a new block of flats and several humpies around here, which don't come up in the ABS. In this particular town, there are 900 homeless people, and they've got to live somewhere, but they don't show up in the ABS statistics. But that's where they are, and we find that out by driving around on Google Street. Doesn't always work though. This is a crime hotspot of Canberra. Anybody recognise it? Yeah, that's right. It's this place 3 years ago before it was turned into the palace you find yourselves in now. So you've got to be very careful that some of these Google Street Maps can be quite old. Nevertheless, sometimes very useful to get context. So we spent a fair bit of time driving around the particular town we were looking at. This one here, we've looked at the number of public housing, percentage of public housing, and again, quite a good match, which again shows us from a public policy viewpoint there that the actual housing commission in this particular state has a major role to play in crime. With this one, again, I've looked at residential crime and non-residential crime. See, quite good here, a lot of non-residential street crime up here. Now, going on our routine activity series, our villains tend to live in this part of the world here. A lot of offending happens up here, and you'll see down here, and this little trail again, another row of offending. So from routine activity theory, it would suggest that they're offending here, but they're the same characters up here as well. Again, this is a hotspot of residential crime. This is just purely residential crime this time. And in this one I have put in sexual assault. So you can see there's a very strong relationship between sexual assault and sexual crime. Sexual assault and residential crime. Most of this would be residential violence. So despite all we've been hearing about internet predators, sexual predators online, the boring truth is that most sexual assaults actually happen in areas where there's very high levels of violence more generally. Looked at this map. This graph comes out of this particular state's database. The location of incidents, well, half the incidents happen, this bar here says half the incidents happen at home. We see sex offences here, but nearly 70% of them happen in a residential location. You also see here, up the top here, the age structure of sexual assault victims. The blue line is females, the white line is males. The gender ratio is about 20% here. 20% of victims are males, 80% females. It happens everywhere in this particular state, 78-82, 78-22. So you see males are assaulted at a younger age than females, but there's quite a large spike. And we see down here that most of them happen in a residence. So we just want to check and see whether actually that's the case here. And what I've done here is put the white dots, the lighter blue dots of victims under 14. I've chosen here, and then victims over 14. You can see there's not that much difference. So it really doesn't matter what age group you are. You most likely be a victim in a place where there's very high levels of domestic violence. I actually cut that map for males and females for the state where I had more data to go on, not just this small town, and there's actually very little difference between males and females as well, which is I actually found a bit surprising. So what this is basically telling us is that rather than looking at particular types of crimes in isolation, I know we have domestic violence task forces around the place, we have sexual assault task forces around the place. In fact, they seem to happen at the same time and in the same place, which would certainly indicate to me at least there that the same people are involved, and that we really can't look at one type of crime without actually having a look at, well, let's look at the whole crime milieu. Where we're going in future, One of the problems with doing this kind of stuff, I'll just go back to this one. One of the problems with doing this kind of stuff is this is quite limited and it's very difficult to construct general principles from them. So we're looking at very deep structures in space and time that affect the crime geography of Australia's cities, and actually trying to work out the geography of cities and how the actual geography of cities is affecting crime, the geographic structure of cities, rather than just doing hotspots. The other one is we're looking at the relationship between regions in an ecological framework. It's using quite sophisticated mathematics to try and understand the spatial dynamics behind crime patterns, and this goes back, we're using a data set that goes back to 1991. So we're trying to see whether the changes in regions are actually affecting crime. One of the areas that I'm particularly interested in is the deindustrialisation of Australia. The loss of manufacturing in particular regions seem to be associated with very high crime rates. So the actual industrial structure can lie behind some of these rates of crime that we're seeing. So that's essentially where we're at now. So.